Ever since the announcement that Solo Leveling was getting an anime adaptation, it's been on the forefront of a lot of people's minds due to the success of the manhwa. And although I haven't actually read the manhwa, I've seen enough spoilers on TikTok and Twitter to feel the same type of excitement when the series releases first episode during the winter of the 2024 anime season. But even though I've been spoiled for the later parts of the series, that doesn't take away how insane this series actually is. And in this video, I want to go over the first few episodes that got us to the current point that we're at in the anime. Now, in the beginning of the series, we're introduced to the way that the universe's power system works, and that's through awakening to become a hunter. And hunters clear out dungeons that randomly pop out throughout the cities, and these dungeons have a ranking that correlates to the hunters that show up throughout the series, with the highest and most dangerous rank being S and the lowest rank being E. And luckily for us, our main character just happens to be the worst of the worst.
I mean, you're not wrong, but you didn't have to say it.
Jinwoo is known as humanity's weakest hunter, so that means that every single dungeon that he encounters will most likely be an easy one. But even though it's easy for most hunters, Jinwoo always comes out looking like he just fought an entire war. And lower rank hunters like going on these raids with Jinwoo because they know that they have a 99% chance of surviving if they go on a raid with him. But the reason why Jinwoo is doing all this, even though he's known as the weakest hunter, is for the sake of his mom, who is currently under the eternal sleep disease. So being a hunter gives him a chance to pay off the bills for him and his family. What a good guy. And even though Jinwoo might be the weakest hunter, he still somehow manages to pull this baddie who is a healer type and a part of the team of the first raid that we see in the series. For a majority of this first raid, it was just basically Jinwoo getting healed while everybody else was getting all the motion. Kind of like whenever you have a group project, except you get graded on individual work. That individual work being the loot that you get in the dungeon. But after getting through the first part of this dungeon, they end up pulling up on a tunnel at the end, which could also be known as a double dungeon. And since it was such a low ranked dungeon, the group decided to take a vote and try to heavy their pockets and take part in the second part of this dungeon. But boy oh boy were they in for a surprise, because as soon as they enter the door and start looking around, the door slams shut like it's a scary movie, and the first guy that tries to make an exit ends up getting turned into paint splatter. And this is where we find out that this giant statue is an absolute troll. And what do I mean by that? I mean, come on, this god statue is most definitely fucking with every single hunter there. And in order to survive this situation, who do they end up relying on? None other than humanity's weakest hunter. What a coincidence.
I think that goes without saying.
And the reasoning behind this is because Jinwoo recognizes that in order to get out of this mortifying escape room, they're gonna have to follow the 3 commandments. And let's just say that a few people were a little impatient.
What did I just see?
But even when I thought that the group of hunters were following these commandments, they ended up just getting stomped on like they were victims of the rumbling. Nevertheless, our main character ends up making it through this round of trolling from the god statue, but it doesn't come free as his leg gets detached from his body. There's been a whole lot of missing limbs in this anime so far. Anyway, after this banger gets done playing, an altar pops up that seems to be for a sacrifice, but the thing is that every hunter that was left had to be standing there in order for them to get out. But as soon as that door opens, it was really just every man for themselves, as Jinwoo draws the short straw and is the only one who doesn't escape, leading to his death in only the second episode. But luckily in the third episode, he wakes up to realize that he's not dead and has acquired the system. And this confuses Jinwoo because he thought he had a second awakening, but his power level really didn't go up at all. And this causes Jinwoo to skip his first daily quest because, let's be honest, nobody would want to do the Saitama workout right after they believed they had died. And as he's most likely dead asleep, he gets spawned into the nether to survive 4 hours against a giant centipede. Like seriously, imagine coming back to life and the first time you go to sleep, it's a life or death situation against something that makes you look like a toothpick. But Jinwoo ends up surviving the 4 hours, and this makes him do his daily quests every day to help him figure out how the system actually works. And you probably already know, but essentially Jinwoo gets points for completing his daily quest that he could spend on his attributes, which boosts his real world stats and appearance. But after a few mystery loot boxes that he gets from completing these daily quests, he gets a key to an instance dungeon. And from what I could tell, it's a dungeon that only Jinwoo could go into. And in this dungeon, Jinwoo runs into a goblin that used to give him trouble back in the day, but due to the system, he doesn't really struggle like he used to. And then a wolf with a bottom grill pops in the picture, and if it wasn't for Jinwoo bunking this guy's sword, he might have been a goner. But of course, this would give Jinwoo the confidence that he needed, which is good because as soon as a whole ass squad of wolves pull up, Jinwoo no-diffs them all and levels up in the process. But since this was a dungeon, there had to be a final boss, and that boss happened to be a giant ass snake whose scales were too thick to cut through with the sword that Jinwoo was using. But since Jinwoo realized that he had that dog in him, he takes the snake down with his bare hands. Like, this is the same guy that was struggling against a fucking level 1 goblin.
W's in the hot.
And after leaving this dungeon, he runs into what looks like a cop, and after this cop looking guy realized that Jinwoo was a hunter, he gets informed that there was a dungeon break, and the only beast left seemed to be the boss. And you already know, since his girl was there, Jinwoo had to help out a little bit since he saw she still had PTSD. After this, when it's his last day in the hospital, we get to see that Jinwoo has become noticeably more diced, and all the nurses in the hospital becomes fans.
I owe you an apology, I wasn't really familiar with your game.
But when he gets discharged and gets back home, rent is still due, so he picks up a C-rank dungeon he finds online, and after meeting this squad of hunters, he's initially used as a backpack for everybody else. And another low-ranked hunter hopped on this job with him, and he was just as not involved as Jinwoo was. But as soon as the squad makes it through the dungeon to the boss, it's pretty obvious that this was the setup, and right when the squad leaves, they trap Jinwoo and this D-rank hunter with the final boss and leave them for dead. All this just because they were too greedy to spread the wealth. Disappointing. Like seriously, all he had to do was go from splitting it 1 out of 7 to 1 out of 8. But Jinwoo nuts up, and with his new weapon, he believes that he actually has a chance against this boss. But while he's fighting, the spider really wasn't taking any damage, leading to another damn near death for Jinwoo.
Embarrassing.
Luckily, he had a refresh button though, leading him to defeat this spider. But whenever the D-rank hunter Jinyo sees Jinwoo do this, he believes that he's a false rank hunter, who from the outside looking in, seemed to be pretty dangerous. Of course, since they got set up to get killed by the spider boss, the group that set him up came back to get the loot for themselves. And since Jinwoo is known as the weakest hunter, they suspect that the D-ranked with the fancy gear was actually able to get the job done. So the group leader offers the deal to Jinyo to betray Jinwoo to spare his life, but as soon as he declines, Jinwoo gets instantaneously blown back and leaving him to question the morality to fight back or not. And let's just say Jinwoo went 6 for 6 like Jordan after realizing he can't go out sorry like he did the first time. He even hit the Sukuna facepalm on the leader in the most disrespectful way and proceeded to slice him like some butter.
This is exactly what I've been waiting for.
By the way, the leader of this party was the older brother of someone who might play a big role later on down in the story. I don't really know though. I haven't read the manhwa. Of course, since Jinwoo is the main character, he was at odds with having to kill human beings, but if it was for the sake of his family, he was willing to go that far. And since there were only 2 people to collect the loot, Jinwoo's bank account became a little fatter in the process. Also, Jinyo decided to give him all the money because he saw how powerful Jinwoo actually was. This causes Jinyo to call out Jinwoo to have a talk about forming a guild in the future. And although Jinwoo would have bid at this opportunity a long time ago, he decides not to take up Jinyo's offer. The next time we see him, he's training, but instead of only doing the workout that was necessary, he decided to double up on every single exercise to see what would happen. And what happened was, he got a key to a dungeon that had the elixir of life. This could probably save his mom. Again, I don't really know. I haven't read the manhwa. But since it has such a big reward, there's no way that this was going to be an easy dungeon. And that point is very well proven because as soon as Jinwoo enters this dungeon, he runs into a Cerberus who can withstand the attacks from his poison dagger.
Damn.
If it wasn't for Jinwoo getting amped and having these potions that he bought, he probably would have died again. But since the guard dog was so tough, Jinwoo decides to make the wise decision to go ahead and leave this castle for another day when he's stronger. After this, we end up seeing Jinwoo accepting the offer to go ahead and work together to complete 19 C-rank dungeons to make Jinyo look better for his dad, but only under one condition, and that condition being that only Jinwoo and Jinyo are the people to go into the dungeons and clear them. And by the way, if Miss Cha keeps on coming on the screen like this, I will not complain at all. I'm just saying, Miss Cha might be top 2 and not number 2, if you know what I'm saying. And after this meeting, after Jinwoo is waiting for Jinyo to go ahead and get other people to recruit, we see that doing the daily quest isn't really leveling up Jinwoo that much, so this leads Jinwoo to go ahead and accept a D-ranked mission, which happened to be a coincidence because every other hunter that was a part of that first raid in the season ends up getting called for this D-ranked mission as well, except for that one chick. But as the 5 arrive and continue talking about the good old times, 3 prisoners end up showing up, and they happen to be people that are going on this raid as well. And I can only see something fishy end up happening by the next episode. But we haven't got there yet, so that's all I got for this one. Until next time, peace.